Hello, America. Welcome to your Leo Nation. I am the chief, the retired chief, Mark Garrett, with me again, which is always, I love saying again in front of this name, retired special agent in charge, Bill Bodner of the DEA. Bill, welcome back to your Leo Nation.
Thank you, Chief. Two retired guys trying to, I don't know, trying to speak the truth, huh?
Trying to speak the truth, make a difference. And I'll tell you right now, there are a lot of people trying to make a difference in this country right now, in my opinion,
Mm.
which is extremely humble, not always for the better. So I want us to do just a real quick bam, bam, bam show today on three different topics that just really struck me as, well, for me, crazy. I think interesting to everybody. And again, everything we talk about here at Your Leo Nation has something to do with the rule of law. I try to keep it that way. Law enforcement, legislation, abiding by the rule of law. And I think these three topics we're going to talk about today very quickly are right in that wheelhouse. So the first one I want to jump on real quick, Bill, is a story out of the state of Washington. No, not
Mhm.
Washington, D.C. That's a disaster as well, probably just in front of the state of Washington. The state of Washington, in their great wisdom, per the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, passing the bar to be a lawyer, no longer required. And this is just earlier this month in March. Passing the bar exam will no longer be a requirement for becoming a lawyer in Washington. The Supreme Court has ruled that a pair of orders. Going down this article here, this is by Carleen Johnson, the Center Square is a publication. You might ask yourself why. Why would state Supreme Court or any body of jurists rule in this way? By the way, people who themselves, all of these individuals on the state Supreme Court, they each had to pass the bar, and I'm glad that they did.
Mhm.
It's like passing your medical boards to become a licensed physician. So you might ask yourself, why would they eliminate the bar exam in order to become a licensed lawyer in the state? So before I even read the article, Bill, I had already come to a conclusion why this might be the case. Do you want to take a jab at this?
They want to see equal out. They want to dictate equal outcome. They
Well,
without. Am I wrong about that? They want to dictate like a DEI type of thing where they want outcomes to be equal regardless of what the input is. Does that make sense?
uh, what you said is 100% accurate. Their goal doesn't make any sense to me, but that's exactly what their
Oh,
goal is. I'll
okay.
read
Okay.
just a short excerpt from the same article. During a September presentation before the Washington State Bar Association Board of Governors, Washington Supreme Court Justice Raquel Montoya Lewis, one of the chairs of the Bar Licensure Task Force, said the movement comes in part from law students who have raised issues about equity, not just in the history of the adoption of the bar exam, but also over the course of many decades. When you look at the disproportionate impacts the bar exam has on examinees of color. My apologies. Couldn't pass the bar because I can't read. So this says it's talking about the disproportionate impacts. Now, that's a euphemism. That's double talk for they're not getting enough people of color to pass the bar. Am I
No, that's
misinterpreting what I just read?
no. I think that's what it is. But
Yeah.
so the question is, are they going to the same schools as people who are passing the bars, or what's going on here?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. But of course, you would think that when you look across the board, whether someone's white, black, male, female, whatever it is, that it all comes out in the wash. Some people are getting educated with their law degree online, I would imagine. Some
Mhm.
people are going to the top universities in the country.
Right.
Some people are going to a state university. But according to this article, I'm just saying here what I'm reading here. The concern is that out of that entire grid of people, enough people of color are not passing the bar. So you would think that I would assume that people of color have the same ability to go to various colleges, universities, higher institutes of education, so they say, as anybody else. I think there might be some other underlying reasons that they say that people of color, I'm using their terminology, are not being as successful with the bar as other people might be. But the question is, is this a case of the tail swinging the dog? Because what this is, it's a race to the bottom. Well, you know what? A certain sector is not doing as well as we'd like to in this examination process. So we're going to eliminate it for everybody. To me,
Yeah.
that's insanity.
So here's what I don't understand about this, Mark. If So the bar will now be optional, is my understanding in this? Like you don't have to take the bar, but you could take the bar. So
Well,
go ahead.
correct. No, you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah. So here's what they're almost saying. Like, if they're saying they don't have enough people of color qualifying to be lawyers in the state, if I need to look for a lawyer, would I not look for someone that's I want someone who passed the bar. If it's going to be optional, I'm gonna choose someone who passed the bar. And you brought up something earlier in passing, which I was going to bring up. Is this going to apply to medical boards? Are we going to not have
Why not?
right?
Why not?
Like
Yes.
why are there requirements to be licensed? These are legal licensing requirements that are being removed based on what?
You know what? It's based on ideology.
Mhm,
It's based on equity, as far as
mhm.
I'm concerned. It's
Equity,
based
yep.
on outcome philosophy.
Outcomes,
We want everybody to end up in the same place at the same time, no matter what their qualifications, their effort, their discipline, their God-given ability, no matter what all those other factors may dictate. We want everybody to end up at the same place at the same time. You raise a good point about if you're a client, if you need a civil lawyer, if you need a criminal defense lawyer, a tax lawyer, whatever it is, and you have different levels of accreditation, whatever that might be, who would you go to? You go to the
right.
person. It's the old story, like you said a minute ago. It's going to happen with medical boards. Do you want the cardiologist, the heart surgeon,
Mhm,
who got A plus all the way from elementary school to medical school, or the one who got the C minus all the way through,
right.
so to speak? If you had a choice, if you knew, well, the answer is obvious, and I think that's what we're seeing right here. But I do think that this is going to come back to bite at least Washington State, and by the way, the people of Washington State in ways they have not considered, because you might see now what some may consider discrimination by these people who didn't pass the bar or take the bar and pass it, not getting as much business or attention as
You
they would like to.
Mark, this reminds me, and I don't it's very important that I don't get this wrong, and I'm gonna encourage people, if I do get this wrong, please know it's not on purpose and correct me. Put something in the comments and correct me. But I remember a story, and maybe you've heard this of Clarence Thomas. Graduated from Yale Law School, if not the finest law school in the United States, one of 2 or 3 of the best law schools in the United States. I feel like he had trouble getting a job right out of law school, and or at least he at one point speculated that things like this almost have a negative effect because people feel like you are the benefit of what am I trying to say, Mark? You're the
Well, the
benefit.
affirmative action, in
I
other
mean,
words, you
you're
didn't
there,
get the
right?
you didn't get there on your own merit.
So that was exactly what I believe. That's exactly what he said. He said he thought that people felt that he was someone who was the benefit of affirmative action and maybe wasn't as skilled, as qualified as other people in his class. And the reality was he's obviously one of the I think a great legal scholar. That's not the case, but that's what we have to be careful of when things like this are put in place. Does it then actually exacerbate a problem and cause more problems because people look at it in that way? That's almost what you're saying when you're saying that this will have an effect where people will now specifically not look for people who haven't taken the bar or who haven't passed the bar, and it makes the situation worse.
That's exactly right. Well,
Yeah.
you've summed it very, very well, and we'll see how this progresses. And as you said, ladies and gentlemen, on this particular topic, there are two more to come. But send your comments and thoughts in on that. I want to hear what the listening audience has to say. Our next one, again, this is a rule of law issue. Matter of fact, it's more than a specific rule of law. This is talking about the Constitution as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
In this one comes out of the wonderful state of Illinois. Title: Undocumented immigrants have right to own guns, judge rules.
Mhm.
Again, this is March of this year. This is an old story. It goes back to 2020. But a judge this month, I'm reading an article here from Newsweek. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I don't always go to the conservative sources. I go to middle of the road or Newsweek that I think leans one way or the other, or not right. A judge this month dropped gun charges against an illegal migrant. By the way, this article said illegal. I wonder if I have to apologize for that.
Mhm.
Sorry, couldn't help myself. An illegal migrant in Illinois, sparking further debate about the rights associated with the Second Amendment. U.S. District Court Judge Sharon Coleman of the Northern District of Illinois referenced lower court rulings in dismissing firearm possession charges against Heriberto Carbajal Flores, who was illegally or unlawfully in the United States when he possessed a handgun in the Little Village neighborhood of Chicago on June 1st, 2020. Now, why is this so important? This is so
Mhm.
important because, in short, federal law, federal law prohibits, it bans, it does not allow a non-US citizen the right to possess firearms in this country. In other words, federal law has supported the notion that the Bill of Rights, in this case specifically the Second Amendment, only applies to US citizens. Now, before I have you chime in your books, I really want to get your take on this, and I'm going to give you my take about the motivation behind this ruling in a second. But this doesn't mean that an illegal immigrant or someone on vacation here doesn't have the right to be treated the same way under the laws here that we do. In other words, if someone is robbed here or someone were to be denied entry into an establishment because of their race and they're not a US citizen or they're here visiting, whatever, all of the protections would attach to them as it does a citizen, in my opinion, based on what
Mhm.
I've read on statute and settled law and things like that. However, people cannot claim the rights of the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, on their own unless they are US citizens. Now, Bill, I want to get your take on this
Yeah.
before we move on.
So, Mark, you're a strict interpretationalist. You're a strict interpretationalist, and you're saying that there is a law that says, is this in the Constitution that you have to be a U.S. citizen, or
No,
is
that's
this
why I said that it's federal law, and I should have
it's
actually
so
cited
so
it.
there's a federal law that contradicts,
By the way, I have it right here. It's Title 18,
right? So,
US Criminal Code.
so there's a federal law that contradicts the Constitution, and we're okay with that. So you're saying he shouldn't be that the second. So my understanding of the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment's the Second Amendment. It's really. I know there's a lot of refinements put on it, and I'm not saying I disagree with some of them, but let's not lose sight, especially you as a strict interpretationalist of the
Mhm.
Constitution. There's a law on the books that's in, I don't want to say violation, in contradiction to the Second Amendment. And this judge has said that's in contradiction to the Second Amendment. And we're going to take issue with that.
Yeah, I take issue with it because the code, in my opinion, is not in contradiction. It's not in conflict with the Constitution. Here's why. Again, we're talking specifically here about the Second Amendment because the Second Amendment
Mhm.
articulates specifically, it says the people. And when you read the word the people in the context of the Declaration of Independence and the rest of the Constitution, starting Article 1 and moving on down, the people refers to individuals who are citizens of the United States. The people is not referring to the population of Earth. It is
Right.
referring specifically and solely to US citizens, plain and simple.
I mean, what did
That's
it
why
mean,
this is
Mark?
not in
What did it
conflict.
mean to be a U.S. citizen in 1776? I
And
mean, what did it mean to be a U.S. citizen? Was there a complex immigration hurdles to get over to become a U.S. citizen? Were you taking a test like you are today? Did you have to learn the Constitution? I think maybe, and you would probably know better than me, being a lot more of a constitutional scholar. probably being a U.S. citizen back then meant, and this is probably where we're going with this conversation, Mark, when you hear what I'm about to say, but being a U.S. citizen then meant you were just present in the United States. If you're here in 1776, you're a U.S. citizen, you're part of this country. And I do see where this is going as far as probably voting rights. I don't know if that's what you were gonna, if
No,
that's
actually, it's by the
okay.
way, that's a great ancillary topic
Well,
related to this, but that's not where I
yeah.
was going. So
Okay.
going back to
Yeah.
1776,
Yeah.
being here in 1776 did not make you a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
By no means did it make you a U.S. citizen. It's very important to remember that about one third of the population of the 13 colonies during the Revolutionary War were loyalists. They either supported or directly fought for and with the Redcoats, the
Mhm.
British crown, the English crown. So there, they were not at the time. They were rebels by definition. So the people who took the first oath to become U.S. citizens were our founding fathers in Philadelphia. Those were the ones who swore allegiance to the United States. Now, if you're asking me specifically what the process was as it filtered out from there and grew from there as becoming a U.S. citizen and being sworn in and taking a test, I don't have the answer to that. But I
Yeah.
can tell you right now, just because you relied on July 3rd, 1776, or July 5th, 1776, did not make you a U.S. citizen. But what we can prove, what we do know, is what makes you a U.S. citizen today.
Mhm.
And the founding fathers were clear. They were clear about what the people meant. The phrase "the people" was used multiple times in the Declaration and in the Constitution. And here is the simple, in my opinion, the clear proof that it only meant people that were citizens in the US, the people,
So,
because it never articulates anybody else outside of the limits of our borders. So that's why I believe that this law is not in conflict. Go ahead.
no, does the Fifth Amendment only apply to U.S. citizens?
Well, the Fifth Amendment, you're talking about self-incrimination?
Yeah. Or any of the other protections that any of, see, I look at the Second Amendment as no different than any of the other rights protections that we have.
Mhm.
Hey, if I'm a cop, I'm gonna love that this world that you're describing, where you have to be a U.S. citizen to enjoy the specific rights of the quote rights of this country.
Mhm.
So tell me in your world, does a non-U.S. citizen have Fifth Amendment protections?
Well, yeah, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a
Hmm.
constitutional scholar. I know what I read. I would imagine that the first thing is that if someone is an illegal immigrant here, if they're not here lawfully, the first thing would be that they don't have any right to stay. So if someone commits a crime, depending on what it is, that they would be deported. That would be the first thing. In other words, something they can't do to you or me, at
Right,
least today,
right.
because we're US citizens. So that would be the first level that I would talk about when it comes to the Fifth Amendment. You don't have the right to stay here. So we're going to move your butt back out of the country or to your home country or to someplace else. As far as self-incrimination, it's a good question. It's a question for a constitutional scholar. Now, what I will say is this: is that some of these things may have been argued in the Supreme Court or may
Hmm.
have just been things that have not been argued. And so maybe the right to non-self-incrimination has been something that's been enjoyed by non-citizens,
Or
but
search and seizure, or
I still
search and
don't think that
seizure.
it's yeah, I still don't think that that was the intent
Hmm.
of the founding fathers. I'll finish with this. My belief, by the way, this judge was appointed by Barack Obama, if that
Hmm.
matters to anybody. By the way, there are plenty of conservative appointees or that were appointed by Republican presidents, judges at every level that do things I think are absolutely
Right,
wacko.
right.
So I just want to put that out there as a caveat. So please, I want to see your comments, but I get it. In other words, both sides do weird things. But my belief is, if I had to guess, I would guess that this particular judge is not a huge fan of the Second Amendment. I could be wrong, but we could look
Mhm.
that up and find out. So if that's the case, if I'm right about that, why would she actually say this person, Gary Gunn? I will tell you this: if you read the entire article,
Mhm.
her justification here is here is the craziest part of this. Her justification for this gentleman not being prosecuted, not being criminally liable for possessing a gun, is because he hadn't committed any other crimes. That's her justification.
Yeah.
And that to me is, I would say, by the way, the defendant who contended the firearm was possessed for self-defense and protection of property during a time of documented civil unrest, this is 2020, in the spring of 2020, has never been convicted of a felony, a violent crime, or a crime involving the use of a weapon. You've got to be kidding me. There are plenty of people in this country. Listen, in most states, a 17-year-old can't possess a firearm.
This is
They've never
Chicago?
committed a crime, but they still
Chicago,
be
man?
charged for it.
Is this Chicago?
This is Chicago.
I mean,
My belief.
I'm going to tell you what, I understand why this guy is carrying a gun in Chicago, though.
No, by the way, if I were him, first of all, if I
You
were
would also
here,
be carrying a gun
I'd
in
be
Chicago.
carrying a gun too. In
Yeah.
other words, in that particular, I get it.
So
I'm
could
not-
the judge could the judge be saying that, like, I don't blame this guy for carrying,
But
a
it doesn't
gun.
matter. He's still in violation of law, even if his reasoning is legitimate. Even if you and I believe that he was going to hurt anybody,
Right.
except to defend himself, which he says and she concurs with, it's still a violation
Violation
to
of the law.
possess the
Right.
gun. It doesn't matter. Listen, I'm gonna say this: if you have to drive your injured friend to the hospital because he's bleeding out, but you're loaded with 6 beers and a hit of cocaine, and you happen to get stopped, you're still in violation of driving under the influence.
Right.
Now, whether or not a prosecutor wants to prosecute or a judge wants to mitigate, I get all that, but you're still technically in violation of law. She dropped the case altogether. I just think that the ruled in his favor. So
Yeah.
my guess is on this, ladies and gentlemen, this is just my guess, is this is a person who's not very happy with the Second Amendment as the Supreme Court has ruled on it recently. And this throws, just like we're having right now, this great debate, Bill, this throws a monkey wrench into the Second Amendment. My guess is that, okay, you want everybody to be able to possess guns with certain caveats and exceptions. Well, so do I. Now illegal immigrants can have them too.
Yeah.
That's my personal belief when I went down here.
I'm going to say mine is a little bit different. I see this as a foundation for expanding voting rights. So just people keep that in mind. That could be something we see down the road. But by all means, let the chief know in the comments.
Please do. By the way, Bill,
what rights should, quote, illegal immigrants have? Are they entitled to the same rights as U.S. citizens?
By the way, it's a great discussion for another time. A very, very deep discussion, and I'll look forward to that one with you, Bill.
What else you got, Chief?
Hey, the final one. Now, this is my favorite. This is my favorite of the week. The other ones are they're all heavy, including this one, but you can't make this up. Now, like I said at the beginning of the show, folks, I always try to focus on something that relates to the rule of law. Now, what could be more germane to that than the people who actually make our laws? I'm talking on the federal level right now, but it's by the way, whether it's state or federal, we're talking about legislation and legislators. So if you don't know, you probably do, but of course, the President Joe Biden impeachment hearings are taking place this week in Congress. And yesterday, Tony Bobulinski testified. Now, for those of you who may not know who Tony Bobulinski is a former business associate of Hunter Biden. Tony Bobulinski was there to testify on behalf of the impeachment proceedings in favor of impeachment for the Republicans who are exploring the possibility of bringing those charges against President Biden. So, but he got to be questioned by both sides, of course. And before we move on, I want everybody to watch this clip with AOC questioning Tony Bobulinski. Guys, roll that clip real quick.
Is it your testimony today that you personally witnessed President Joe Biden commit a crime?
I believe the fact that he was sitting with me while I was putting together a
Did
business
you
deal-
witness the
But-
president commit a crime? Is it your testimony today?
Yes.
And what crime have you witnessed?
How much time do I have to go through it?
It is simple. You name the crime. Did you watch him steal something?
Corruption statutes, RICO and conspiracy.
What is it?
FARA.
What is the crime, sir?
You
Specifically.
You asked me to answer the question. I answered the question.
No.
RICO, you're obviously not familiar with. Corruption
Excuse me,
statutes,
sir. Excuse me,
FARA.
sir. Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime. It is a category. What is
It's
the
a category of crimes that you're then charged
You
under
have charges.
A long 100.
You
list
have
of
charges. Sir,
statutes.
please
Want me to name the exact statute
Sir,
under RICO?
yes.
Well, it's funny. In this committee room, everyone's not here. There's over 18
All right, sir. I reclaim my time.
lawyers that
I
went to
reclaim
law
my
school.
time. I
I'll leave
reclaim
it
my
up to
time.
you guys
Okay,
to
thank
define
you,
the
sir.
statute.
I've watched this a number of times. Part of me is laughing and part of me is crying. Now, I know it sounds over dramatic, but I'll put it this way. Part of this I do find humorous and part of it I find terribly frightening. What's humorous is, now, Bill, you've interrogated.
You're not going to like what I say, Mark, but go ahead.
Go ahead. I know you've interrogated a lot of people, and I will say this, and I've had to do the same thing. And by the way, who knows? Maybe I'll love what you say. You never know. But AOC is questioning Tony Bobulinski about RICO, about a statute on the books. And you guys saw the clip. And she says that RICO is not a law. Now, former President Trump is right now, he's been charged with multiple RICO violations by a particular prosecutor. But AOC tells Tony Bobulinski that RICO is not a law. Now, I'm going to stop right there because you said I may not like what you have to say, so I wanted to give you the floor, Bill.
So here's what I'm going to say about that. Hey, obviously, you and I both know, and everybody listening to this right now knows the way those hearings work. Somebody wrote that for AOC, and I'm sure she doesn't understand the intricacies of it, but I see, like, for me, I see what she's saying, and technically, not necessarily wrong. And here's RICO is, and I've obviously, or maybe not obviously, but in my now retired occupation, we investigated RICO cases. What she's trying to say is, what's the underlying crime? There has to be a predicate offense. There has to be an underlying crime to then charge. RICO is racketeer influence corrupt organization. What it basically means is there's this huge criminal enterprise, and everyone, and all RICO means is everyone who's part of that enterprise is guilty of every crime. Think of that as the RICO law. So again, I don't think she probably even understands this distinction, Mark, but the part you're not going to like about what I say is she's not really wrong what she's saying. She's saying, what's the underlying offense? Like, you want to charge everybody with RICO? That's fine. Charge everybody with RICO. But what is the underlying criminal violation that was committed? Now, Bobulinski did say, and I didn't really catch it. It had an abbreviation, FAR, foreign.
I think
foreign
it broke off, but I think he was going to say, FARA.
FARA, that's what he said. Actually, that's
Yes.
what he said on the part I watched. I caught it. So he may have, legitimately answered that question, and because she doesn't really know what she's talking about. Again, somebody wrote this for her, and she doesn't really know what she's talking about.
Well, Bill,
but I'm telling you, she's not really wrong in what she's saying, Mark. There does have to be an underlying offense, a predicate offense to charge RICO.
Well, there's two things here. Number one, and you said it better than I was. You said very clearly, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
This is what I was saying, sir, earlier, that the number of people that you and I have had to question, interrogate, investigate, whatever it is over the years, from the smallest little offense to internal investigations, whatever it may be, the old story is never ask a question that you don't know the answer to when you're actually investigating. You damn well better know what the answer is, at least to the best of your ability. And if you're not really, really certain, don't ask the question. Ask it later on. We have more information.
Mhm.
So when you said she doesn't know what she's talking about, even if we get into the niceties of what RICO is, and I agree with you that RICO is a set of offenses housed under one umbrella, so to speak, to put it in the vernacular. But
I don't even agree with that, but go ahead.
well, no,
No, I think it's a way of making, and the way I'm going to say this sounds bad, right? I get that. It's a way of making everyone who's part of a group guilty of a crime, even if technically they didn't participate in it. There's even been cases where they don't even know about the crime, but because it was a crime committed by the criminal organization and they're part of that criminal organization, they can be charged with RICO.
yes. And I think that if you listen to not only the exchange with AOC and Bobulinski, if you listen to all of his tests, by the way, I didn't listen to all of it, but I listened to a good portion of it.
Mm.
If you listen to enough of it, let's put it that way. If you listen to enough of it, he articulates the various violations, I think, that would probably satisfy you that
Yeah.
RICO,
I'm sure.
if what he's saying is true,
Oh, yeah.
if what he's saying is true, have satisfied the RICO statute. RICO is a statute. It is on the books.
Yes.
It is able to be articulated. What I'm saying about AOC, as you said a minute ago, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Right.
You would think that if you're going to cross-examine the star witness for the opposition in the House of Representatives, you would think that you wouldn't have your head up your rear and this far, that you wouldn't be prepared, that you would be able to ask, Mr. Bobulinski, could you please articulate the various elements that contribute to what you believe is a RICO violation? That's how you ask it. I'd be fine with that. But he had
So
already
if
done
she
that.
had said, so I think, and Mark,
But would
correct me
you
if I'm
say-
wrong.
but
We
when
just
you say-
watched, we just watched the video, and I've already forgot what it said. But she said, "Tell me what law was broken, or
Yes.
what."
Tell me
So
what law
if
was broken.
so Mark, if she had said, "Tell me the predicate offense,"
Mm-hmm.
which would technically be the correct way to say it,
Mhm.
that would make a difference to you. Like it would be.
It would make a difference, but in conjunction with this, she said that RICO is not a crime.
Right.
Now,
That's not-
maybe what
I
she
get
meant
it.
was,
I know what
in
she
other
meant.
words-
Right.
yeah, but so what?
Right.
Well, when my 3-year-old pointed at the refrigerator and said, "I want the bouncy ball," I know what he meant, but I'm sorry, he's not close. Being a U.S. Congressperson, a representative of the people, you should be more able to articulate exactly what you're talking about and what
Right.
you're inquiring about. That's your job. And you mentioned a minute ago about her staff probably wrote this together.
Yeah.
Number one, how stupid and unprepared is her staff? Number
Yeah.
two, how arrogant is it for her to go in this unprepared where she couldn't, like right now, click on Google, type in RICO, and look at the elements herself. She could lay them out and say, geez, Mr. Bobulinski, could you articulate the elements of RICO I have in front of me right now? That's what a professional does. That's what a serious person does. She's not serious. I feel bad for the people of New York that voted for this person who are actually having buyer's remorse. I hope she loses. But the point is, if these are the people responsible for making our laws,
Yeah.
and she thinks that RICO is not a statute unto itself, we
But
are
did she,
in deep,
Mark? I don't
deep
think
doo-doo.
she didn't say it's not a stat. Did she say it's
She-
not a law?
she
Oh, yeah,
said-
she did. She
she
did say
said-
it's not a law.
She most
did,
definitely did.
Right. She did say
That's
it's
why
not a
I
law.
put this on my top 3 for today.
I get it. She did say it's not a law. Hey, I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, hey, I'm gonna say I'm not an AOC fan, Mark, but I'm gonna say
I
she's
know.
not entirely wrong. It's just not. She's not a lawyer. That's obvious. She's not a lawyer who's been a prosecutor. No one with, and whoever wrote that question or told her that's not a law, that's not the way it should have been phrased. But I'm going to be honest with you. If she had said, "Tell me what the predicate offense is or what the underlying offense is," that would be a perfectly fine thing to say, and it would be accurate. So, hey, let us know
Well,
in the comments.
Comments. Please
Is-
do.
Maybe
Bill,
I'm
listen.
wrong. maybe
No, no.
maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, listen, it's definitely in the, well, it's not just the way the question asked, because she did more than a question. She actually made a statement.
Mm,
She actually claimed that RICO is not a law.
yeah, that's wrong.
And I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
it's not just in what you mean, it's definitely what and how you say things.
Yep.
And this is
It makes a
below
difference.
a U.S. congressperson to be this stupid and unprepared that you can't articulate what you actually mean better than that.
Right.
That's my point. Bill, as always, it's so much fun having you on there. And
Thanks.
ladies and gentlemen, as Bill said, please send your comments. Please let us know what you think. Tell me where I'm wrong. I want to hear. Maybe you can educate me, and I'll get back at you.
Thanks.
Bill Bodner, thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. God bless you. God bless America. Bye-bye.